It's another Friday, so that means it's time for another Friday the 13th review. So in his fourth outing, let's see if everybody's favorite misunderstood goalie with a hard-on for fornicating co-eds has still got what it takes. Friday the 13th, the final chapter. That's a lie. Is brought to us by director Joseph Zito and stars Corey Feldman, Kimberly Beck, and Crispin Glover. The final chapter takes place, shocker, at Crystal Lake. At some point, you think people would start to fucking learn about this place, but hey, I digress. This time around, instead of horny camp counselors, we have horny vacationers. The originality. Yes, that's right, a horny group of young people come to vacation at everybody's #1 vacation spot, Crystal Lake. And even though Jason took a fucking axe to the head in the end of the last movie, he wakes up in the morgue and slaughters the horny mortician and nurse there. Pretty much everybody in this fucking movie's horny, by the way. It totally plays into that whole trope of, like in a horror movie, if you end up fucking or get really horny, you're gonna die. That is the case here. So Jason makes his way back to Crystal Lake where our vacationers and some locals are. And, yeah, I know, the tension's killing you. He fucking kills everybody one by one. Well, almost everybody. I mean, we get a couple of survivors, but you know how this whole thing goes down. Much like the previous entry, part 3, this is a pretty straightforward Friday the 13th flick. Horny people at the lake, Jason at the lake, death. This is also the entry where the kills start to get a bit more creative. As I mentioned, the story of the final chapter is your average Friday the 13th fare. We don't really get any big reveals or anything like that in the end. It's pretty straightforward. However, we do get a pretty straight up callback to the second film in the end of the film when a character decides to shave his head and make himself look like a young Jason Voorhees to fool Jason. Kind of like the chick tried to do in the end of the second movie where she acted like his mom to try and confuse him. Only difference is here, when this kid does it, he goes fucking ham with a machete on Jason's face. I mean, this kid loses it. He goes fucking psycho on Jason's ass. And we're left with a kind of ambiguous ending showing the kid looking at us, the viewer, making us think, is this kid gonna be like the new Jason now? Jason or not, he is clearly pretty scarred and pretty fucked up moving forward in life. But more about that in the next movie, which, yes, there is a next entry after this final chapter. And I don't even really know why they called this the final chapter. Clearly, the ending they gave us, they did not intend on this being the final chapter. I mean, I do guess that there's some ways you can look at it and say that it's the final chapter for, like, Jason, if you will, but it's kind of not, because we all know he comes back. And the direction the series goes with the next movie might kind of sort of explain that, but I don't really think they ever meant for this to be the final Friday the 13th. So yeah, it's a pretty confusing fucking title. Now, all that title shit aside, I will say that this movie is a bit more fun than its predecessor, and quite a bit more gory. More on that in a minute though. This is where the more modern take on Jason began. They actually took 2 years off in between films instead of 1 this time around, and while from 82 to 84 doesn't seem like a really long time, you can totally see a drastic difference in the overall look of the film. And not just the look, but the overall feel as well. Everything about this movie feels different than the other ones. It feels much more like the Friday the 13th that we all think of when we think of Friday the 13th. Now, even though we have a new look and feel to everything, and this one is more fun than its predecessors, it doesn't really offer up anything new. This is more or less just more of the same. And I know it's Friday the 13th, it's a Jason movie. We come to these movies to see dumb teenagers get slaughtered by Jason in creative ways. And it does give us that, but I couldn't help but feel while watching it, this is just more of what I've already seen 3 times before. I mean, it's entertaining enough, I guess, but I was just hoping for something a little bit more fresh. But hey, a copy and paste slasher story could work if we get some really entertaining, fun, over-the-top, super gory, violent kills. And this one absolutely delivers on the violence. This is the one where the violence starts to go through the fucking roof. You can tell they really set out to push the boundaries here. This is absolutely the most violent and gory Friday the 13th up to this point. And I fucking loved it. From the very first kill, you're like, oh shit, okay, that's what we're doing. It's fucking fucking on. It's ridiculous, over-the-top, bloody goodness, and I had a great time with it. Any shortcomings and staleness in the story department are totally made up for the absolute ridiculous fun you have with this over-the-top gore. And say what you want, I don't care. Say that it's ridiculous that I'm saying this movie is pretty entertaining because it's so over-the-top and gory, but it's a fucking Friday the 13th movie. That's why we're here. I mean, that's what these movies are about. Gratuitous amounts of blood, guts, and violence, and a little bit of TNA thrown in for good measure. And it does not disappoint in that regard. Not to mention the great-looking practical effects they have to go along with that over-the-top gore. Gorehounds will love this shit. It is a substantial jump from the last movie. Now, somewhere that they did step up their game with this entry would be the characters. They actually have some characters that have, you know, some character. Corey Feldman's Tommy becomes a staple of the series, and he is the standout here. But we get some entertaining performances and characters from everybody else as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, these aren't like the deepest characters ever, but they do get a bit more depth than we're used to with a Friday the 13th film. Just called this movie a film. Oh well, fuck it. Not every one of the characters here is just a mindless drone waiting to be slaughtered. Or at least not all of them. There are a few of them like that, and yeah, sure, they do all get slaughtered. But they're not all just like blank slate characters. We do actually get a little bit of motivation behind them and a little bit of backstory. A little bit. But a little bit's like a lot of bit in a Friday the 13th movie. On a side note, I was really surprised to see Crispin Glover in a Friday the 13th movie. If you know anything about the guy, you'll know what I mean. Look it up. He's a bit out there. He's a bit eccentric. I haven't seen this movie in years, so I just never really realized that he was in this movie. This is not the type of film he is typically in. But he, among everyone else, did a pretty good job, especially for a Friday the 13th flick. Guys, I had a really good time with Friday the 13th, the final chapter. While yes, the story is a little bit more of the same and nothing special, the ratcheted up, insane, over-the-top violence and gore makes it such a bloody good time. It has some pretty good performances with some slightly more interesting characters, some great practical special effects, and just buckets upon fucking buckets of practical blood. And while it may not be the thinking man slasher flick, it is absolutely a ridiculously entertaining slasher flick, and it is also 100% worth a rent.
All he wanted was this.
I have to return some videotape.
I had a great time with this flick, and if you're looking for a ridiculously violent Friday the 13th flick for the night, then check out Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and I think you're gonna have a great time with it. So there it is, guys, my review of Friday the 13th, the final chapter. If you enjoyed, want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you want to help out the channel, check out my Patreon in the description below and become a jarhead and get some of the awesome benefits that go along with that, like these guys. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Crystal Lake.
But now, Jason's reign of terror is over.
Fun fact, but this entry in the series is the first entry to actually release on Friday the 13th. I mean, what the fuck took so long? This is the 4th entry and you're just now releasing it on Friday the 13th? What the hell were you guys thinking all those years? That shit would have sold itself. I mean, not releasing Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th is like, I don't know, releasing Independence Day on fucking Christmas or something. They didn't do that, did they? No, they didn't. They released it on fucking Independence Day. I mean, what the fuck? There's no other options than to release this movie on Friday the 13th. I should go into marketing. I'm really fucking madman and shit. Yeah.